Alright, and we're back to talk the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles reboot sequel. Actually, it's a prequel that explains how the Turtles knew Casey Jones in the last one. And of course, if you haven't seen the last one, I did. Check it out. It's how to do a proper Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles reboot. Really, you could do either one of these out of order. The reason I want to do the origin story second is because if you're rebooting the series and making a new trilogy, you wouldn't want to start this way. You'd want to start with everything people would come to expect. You want to see a good Shredder. You want to see the 4 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Whereas this one is, both films build towards the same big climactic trilogy, but the first movie is the why the third film happens. This is going to elaborate a little more on how the third film comes about. So, and because we all have to remind everybody how to use YouTube, apparently. I kind of hate it when people do this, but everybody else does it, and I guess that works. So do the like, subscribe, comment, all that nonsense, and let's roll that intro and get started.
You wanna buy some acid?
Listen, you fuckers, you screwheads.
Fuck, man, we got checks! Fucking doggy style and shit on their parents' bed! I'm working my chest, I'm working my triceps, I'm working the back of my calves, and I'm working my heart, and I'm working my lungs. I'm working my buttocks.
I'll tell you what, Steve King, why don't you just take your mama home some chicken, and then I won't have to stuff my boot all up in your ass.
Man, you are one crazy motherfucker.
What's it all?
Go home to your mother! Doesn't she ever want you? Tell her this isn't some communist daycare center! Tell your mother I hate her! Tell your mother I hate you!
And alright, the show is officially on. Welcome to...
Eat shit and die, Ricky!
And critics might feel that way when they see this, because I'm going to be taking some risks with this story. So let's just jump right into it. Alright, so we open with 2 guys in a van, 2 scientists, guys in lab coats, and a guy on the passenger seat is complaining about how the government's shutting down their program and making them dispose of this stuff. And the other guy's, of course, disappointed in it too. A bunch of dudes hijack the truck. They show up with a van. They start taking out all these boxes of mutagen and specimens and stuff. And the driver starts mouthing off to the hijacker and, you know, threatening him like this is a government property and all that stuff. And one of the hijackers just goes, "Oh, really?" And he grabs like an aquarium and smashes it on the ground, and then starts throwing ooze on the ground. And then the guy that was in the passenger seat breaks character, and he goes, "Hey, asshole! It's like, you're supposed to take this stuff, not break my specimens." And the driver goes, "Baxter, the hell?" And Baxter sighs, and then he pulls out a gun, shoots the driver in the head, and goes, "Sorry, Herman." Then he looks over at the thug that's hijacking the shit and goes, "That's your fault, and that's coming out of your pay." And then he runs over to the gutter and grabs the last 2 turtles that haven't fallen into it, and they're covered with ooze. And he's like, "Here, take him to the place, get him out of here. I gotta deal with the cops." And then you hear the sirens coming as guys drive away, and then we drift up into the moonlight, and we go into some guy on the radio talking about the heist that happened last night, and a dead driver. The guy's sitting in the cab with his fare behind him, listening to it, going like, you know, yeah, believe it? It's crazy. Then something runs across the hood, and the guy goes, "What the hell was that?" He goes, "I don't know. Like a dog or coyote." And the guy behind him goes, "Well, like a big rat." And then you get a POV shot of, I don't know, maybe not POV, but you see something running on all 4s in the shadows. It's like the size of a dog. And then we go to an apartment building that is got some police tape and shit over the door. So we go inside. We're still in the POV, and we see the hairy little rat hands collecting stuff, the ninja weapons, cloak, robe rather, that he throws on And we see him, he comes out of the building, he's wearing the robe, and a cop yells at him, and says, "Hey!" So he thinks somebody's breaking into, well, I guess somebody is breaking into the crime scene, but cop chases the robed figure through the alleyway and gets stopped by three dudes, three gangbangers. One of them has a personal beef against the cop. He gets his gun taken away. He ends up in a bad spot. So then we watch over the bad guy's shoulder. We see a trash can lid whack one dude. Then we see the other dude just kind of disappear into the dark. And then that gets head bad guy's attention long enough to turn around and look. And then we just see, that's when we get the reveal of Splinter's face for like a split second. Still not fully mutated. Like, he's still very, very rat looking and young. It's a young Splinter. So we get that reveal, his fist coming towards the camera, and then boom, comes out with the title card, Teenage Mutant Ninja Sensei. Alright, so we've met our first villain in this movie, which is Baxter Stockman. And my pick for him, actor-wise, Kevin J. O'Connor. You might remember him as Benny in The Mummy, and the funny guy in Deep Rising. That nervous chihuahua voice he has.
What a surprise! My good friend, you're alive! I was so very, very worried.
Well, if it ain't my little buddy Benny, I think I'll kill you.
Think of my children.
You don't have any children.
Someday I might.
Shut up. So you...
I vote we leave. Who votes we leave?
Shut up. Mate, that's it. They thought they were sinking, so they abandoned ship. Stupid bastards.
Oh my God, he's right. You're right. Yeah, they all jumped overboard. You know, I can just see the last asshole in saying, "Shit, yes, we forgot the lifeboats. Guess we're just gonna have to swim for it."
He's sort of, you can buy him, he's got a, I want him to have two qualities, because this is gonna, again, this is where I'm saying this is gonna piss people off, probably, because this is gonna be a very, very different type of Baxter Stockman than most people will be used to. And that's why I think Kevin J. O'Connor would be a good pick for him, because even though he's wormy, conniving, there's still a weird likability to him. Like, you don't... Like in The Mummy, like, Benny's such an asshole, but there's some part of you that kind of likes him. And I need this Baxter Stockman to invoke some sympathy. This is going to be kind of a tragic villain. So yeah, like I said, I'm taking some risks here. Alright, so now we go to 1984. We meet Casey Jones, playing hockey. He's a professional hockey player. He's like in his first or second year or something like that. And then we meet his wife and kid. Again, probably going to piss off some Turtle fans, because I know Casey Jones is supposed to be like just some dipshit who got this idea to go be a vigilante from watching bad TV. But in order for this story to work, that really just can't be the case. But don't worry, I'm going to do something interesting here, I think. So, plus, I found out when I was looking up some extra little information about Casey Jones, like from comics and stuff, because I don't read the comic books. I'm just not a comic book guy. I don't know how to read them. Which I know sounds weird, but it's not necessarily I don't know how to read them. I don't know how to get into them. Like, they just don't suck me into the story. I look at the pictures, I see what the characters are saying, but it just doesn't flow for me reading a comic book. But I did find out that little bit in the last story where Raph hurts Mikey in a sparring match, that was in a comic. So I know what I'm doing, don't worry. And as for who plays Casey's wife, why not Milla Jovovich? Give Milla Jovovich a little cameo in here. As I also said in the last one, that the team I would get together with to make this movie would be Paul W.S. Anderson. He does good fight choreography, does good creature effects, and those are the things you need most in a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. Oh, and my pick for Casey Jones. This took a minute to think of the perfect guy, but I think I've found the perfect guy. Desmond Harrington. See his performance as Quinn in Dexter. Just in that one character, he shows a range to play all the things you need Casey Jones to be. You need him to be an indignant hard ass.
Sorry, that asshole you let walk?
Benito Gomez.
Ah, now you get it right. You actually see what that fuckhead did? Gomez hit the kid's old man so hard his cheekbone broke, pushing his eyeball up and out of his face. Then Gomez, sweetheart that he is, kills the guy in front of his own son.
I know.
How about this beauty? Gomez did 5 years for beating his girlfriend so bad even her dentist had a hard time with the ID.
Caring mentor.
You're like the foulest person I've ever met. Every line out of your mouth is a sick joke.
I'm funny.
Yeah, you can be. You can also be completely revolting, and sometimes that's all people see.
And an immature screw-up.
I went to the strip club with Masuka. He bailed on me. And then me and this stripper went to her car, and she...
You banged the stripper in her car?
Maybe my gum fell out in her back seat.
You better pray that it did and that it's still there. Please tell me you at least got her number.
Oh, fuck me.
Your meal.
Alright, so we spend a few minutes getting to know Casey Jones's life. His wife, his kids, like 6 or 7 years old. We see him and his family. They're saying grace at the dinner table. Another thing something that was a running thing in the last reboot. And this is the origins of it. You know, we see him and his wife getting hassled by a bunch of junkie gang member guys. He comes up to him and he recognizes, like, hey, I know you, Casey Jones, right, the hockey player. He's like, yeah, I remember. And he starts talking about like that game that happened like a couple weeks ago. He's like, yeah, man, you did that cool move. And he's like, it cost me 10 grand, man. And then, you know, Casey Jones is like, you shouldn't have bet on the Seahawks, man. What do you want? And then the guy's like, Hassman is like, yeah, you owe me that money. And then he makes like, he's like, you know, maybe your old lady can work it off, you know. And he like starts like licking, like making lewd gestures at his wife. And, you know, Casey almost gets in a fight with him. Wife backs him off. We get a scene of him picking his kid up from school later. And that guy's still like leering around, picking up like his little brother or something. And he makes like the, you know, menacing, like, coming, buddy, want my money, look at him. So now his wife shows up to the hockey arena, pick up the kid. They talk about what they're going to do with the day. She's going to go to the grocery store, and Casey mentions his altercation again with that guy and tells her to keep an eye out for him. So Casey plays the game of his life. I mean, we don't show the whole thing, obviously. We cut to, like, the end. He's coming off the ice. He's celebrating. He's cheering with the guys, and then he walks out, and there's 2 cops standing in the locker room, and they call him over, and then it's just that scene where everything goes quiet, and you just see him drop to his knees and scream. His wife and kid are dead. Fast forward a couple of months, we get Casey Jones talking to a police detective. Why is that guy still out there? Why haven't you locked him up? What's going on? And the cop's like, well, we talked to the guy, got nothing on him. Casey's like, you know, what do you mean he got nothing on him? He took my wife's wedding ring. You didn't find that? You know, he's just going crazy. And, you know, the cop's like, no, I'm sorry. There's nothing I can do. So we go to him and sitting in his apartment watching all the bad TV that inspired Casey Jones, the vigilante. And he starts suiting up. Hockey mask, golf bag, hockey stick, baseball bat, golf club, cricket bat, and 1 ice skate. Casey walks up into their place of leisure. They're playing pool, fucking around, drinking. He comes walking in and just starts whooping ass as Ace of Spades by Motorhead rages in the soundtrack. Overplayed, yeah, I know, but some shit is really overplayed for a reason. And along with all the shit he brought with him, he also knocks somebody out with a billiard ball, a pool stick, and flings a dart into somebody's eyeball. We get up to our head goon, whips out the cricket bat, bashes in both of his ankles. Dude's on the ground screaming. He's yelling, where's my wife's wedding ring? The guy keeps pretending he doesn't know what he's talking about. So Casey Jones takes that ice skate, puts it on his foot, and stomps that motherfucker to death with it.
That's for my wife. Fuck you and die.
Kill him.
On his way out, there's a dude that's getting back up. He grabs him, throws him against the wall. Again, starts asking him about his wife's wedding ring. The guy keeps going, I don't know. So he takes the ice skate and chops off 4 of the dude's fingers and takes it with him and goes, we'll call it a vig. And he walks out the door. As we'll find out later, when he tells the story to Splinter, killers didn't just take his wife's wedding ring, they took the finger it was on also. He makes it back to his apartment. Cops are already surrounding it. So we get a brief chase sequence of him running from the cops, and he escapes into the sewer. He ends up wandering around down there. Wanders around down there in the dark until he finds a couch. Sits down on the couch and passes out. Then he hears some shit, wakes up, and he's stumbling around in the dark, and then you hear this little high-pitched, "Hiya!" And then he just starts getting assaulted by what sound like little kids, you know, so he's not... He figured out, he's like, oh shit, I just wandered into some like homeless family's den, and he's like, I'm leaving, I'll leave, you know, he's not trying to hurt anybody. And then you get and Casey's like, look, I don't want any more trouble, I'll get out of here, I don't mean any harm. And then Splinter says, you don't have to. And then he strikes a match and he lights a candle, and you see the room lights up a little bit, and he gets a glimpse of Splinter lit by candlelight, and he's like, holy shit. And he lights up another candle and hands it over to Casey, so he has some more light. And then Casey looks around the room, and then you see the 4 turtles. The turtles in this one, like I said, are now they're little kids in this one. They're about 10 years old. And Splinter tells him, to sit. Oh, by the way, this is not like the dialogue as I would write it in the script. This is just the general direction the dialogue is going. I'm just making up the pitch and telling you the outline of the story. I'm not writing any of this down. I don't do fan fiction. If I'm gonna actually take the time to write a story, it's all gonna be my original characters. Alright, so we go into Splinter giving the origin story. Very similar to the last one, except this time he tells us about Hamato Yoshi and all that shit first. And we would establish that Hamato Yoshi was obviously a sensei, and he would do this demonstration in his class where he would have Splinter. He had Splinter when he was, still like a pet rat, trained to do a trick where he runs up and breaks a chopstick with his foot, like this little silly rat move that looks like he cried. So he trained the rat to do like one little karate like looking move. And then he tells, of course, the story of Hamato Yoshi and Tang Shin and Hiroko Saki, and how Hiroko Saki and Tang Shin got murdered, and he fled the house and ended up in the sewer, found the baby turtles that were covered in ooze, and he got exposed to the ooze. And this would be a funny little thing, I think, to have an Easter egg here, is in the background of him while he's telling the story and gathering up the turtles and the coffee can and all that stuff, you just see a glowing gecko just slither up the walls in the background and run down a pipe, which of course would be Mondo Gecko, although Mondo Gecko never shows up anywhere else in this trilogy. If I did anything with Mondo Gecko beyond that Easter egg, I would just give him his own movie, and it would have nothing to do with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Run down the pipe, end up on like a boat or something, go to some like tropical island like the Bahamas or something, and it would be like it'd be kind of like an Encino Man like stoner comedy where 2 dudes meet Mondo Gecko as kids, and then it flashes forward to them like their 20s or something, and it's just 3 stoner slacker losers, and one of them is a giant gecko, and they have some just crazy comedic wacky adventure in the style of like a 90s buddy comedy. Alright, but anyway, Splinter wraps up the story, does the whole introducing the turtles, and he named them after these Renaissance artists that Hamato Yoshi talked about a lot. Just something in Splinter's recessive memories from when He was being owned by Hamato Yoshi. I will explain how the ooze works in the series throughout, but it'll be kind of little by little. So Splinter hears out Casey Jones' story in the briefest, 4-word summation he can give him, which is, my wife and kid were killed, I got people after me. And Splinter makes a deal with him. He's like, well, stay here and teach us how to be people. Like, we need to know how to navigate the world a little bit. He's like, eventually, as you've proven, somebody's going to come in and find us. And when they do, we don't want them to see monsters. We want them to be able to talk to us. We want them to meet. We want the world, when they meet us, to be able to relate to us, to see that we're just like them. Because unlike, Splinter and that hunk of shit Seth Rogen made, he's not worried that people are gonna milk him. Alright, so now we cut to a lab, and we find out what Baxter Stockman's been doing all these years. He's a little older, and he's got a regular just lab job, like testing shampoos and stuff like that. Nothing as exciting as working with the mutagen. He's still doing that, like, under the table, but it's his own illegal project. So one of the lab guys mentions that there was some weird-looking guy that was there looking for him, and he plays it off. It's like, yeah, it's just some bum from my neighborhood. It ain't no big deal. But when he's going to his car, you see him, like, looking around, kind of nervous. He gets home, and we find out what happened to one of the other two turtles that was taken out of the storm drain, the one that he managed to rescue at the beginning. And this turtle is going to be Venus de Milo. Yeah, I know it's not the most popular character, and I know nobody likes the fucking girl turtle, but that's also because she's a very poorly conceived character. If executed correctly, Venus de Milo could be a great character. Well, we'll drop the de Milo thing, just call her Venus. First thing we're going to change is her look. Instead of just being Leonardo with tits, and I don't know why you'd put tits on the turtle. That's ridiculous. Make her a different color. Make her one of these turtles. Give her a white underbelly with these, like, crazy Aztecian looking gray stripes and patterns on it. Make her skin a light gray with a like a lot of stripes, yellows and whites. They look like war paint, kinda. Give her these crazy yellow eyes. And this isn't even the fully realized Venus. Like, this is still the kid Venus. She's the same age as the other turtles, about, like, 10-ish. Completely overhauling her origin story, too. The one they gave her in the next mutation was stupid.
Hunter must have missed her.
There was a 5th turtle in a jar with us.
Cheng-Yi thought I represented good luck and took me back to China with him. I was schooled in the internal arts and raised to replace him as a master shaman someday.
Yeah, it was. Very stupid.
Relies on way less coincidences, like, floating down a storm drain and just happen to show up at another karate master's house. Come on. So this Venus grew up raised as Baxter Stockman's daughter. And he treats her like a daughter. Like, he's actually a good dad. And you also learn what her... And also, instead of, like... I don't know what her style was supposed to be. I guess, like, ninjutsu or whatever. She doesn't know any ninjutsu. She is a wrestling fanatic. Like, they watch WrestleMania together. She's trying to get him to, like, wrestle with him. And he's like, nah, we can't do that anymore, baby. You're too old. I'm too old. You're too big. We can't do that anymore. You'll hurt me. So after WrestleMania, he tucks her into bed, and then he goes over to his nearby office, his secret office, where he still does experiments with the ooze that was supposed to have been destroyed. They got hijacked earlier in the movie, in the beginning. So he goes into his laboratory room, Rat runs across his foot. Light comes on, and there's that guy that's been looking for him, which is the Rat King, played by Mickey Rourke or Dolph Lundgren. He'd go either way on those two. I think Mickey Rourke would be the better one. The reason he's been looking for Baxter Stockman is because these clinical trials that Baxter Stockman was holding, and he was experimenting with the mutagen, trying to figure out how to make it work on people, because it doesn't work on two things: insects or people. People, it makes them insane. It kills them. It's a deadly thing. You can't mutate a person. And it doesn't really work on bugs either. So part of the experiment was figuring out how to dilute and mix the ooze from the pure source of it, and dilute it to where it can be used for some kind of medicine or something like that. Well, the side effect it has on the Rat King, which is not, his name's not the Rat King. He doesn't have a name. He just becomes known as the Rat King. But the side effect it has on him is that it made his body emit this pheromone that attracts rats. And this has completely ruined his life. And we learned through this conversation that all of that, plus he lives in I'm living in the goddamn sewer. I can't sleep. He's covered with the bandages. He's like, these rats, they won't leave me alone. They keep me while I sleep. They take out my hair. I want you to fix this. Baxter Stockman gives him a mouser. He's like, what the hell is this? And he turns it on. He sets a parameter thing for it, and he goes, this was a military technology that I decided to hang on to. Decided not to sell it to him. I wanted to keep the patent, maybe use it for something else. But he turns it on, and the thing spots a rat, and runs up and just chomps the rat in half. And Rat King is not particularly impressed with this. It's like, I want a cure. I don't want this stupid toy. And Baxter's like, I can't do anything about that. He's like, trust me, the mouser is gold. The mouser will keep the rats off of you. And then you just see Baxter Stockman go flying out of his office window, lands in a dumpster full of discarded mutagen, hazardous waste, and you just see this big cloud of flies come roaring out. Rat King goes ahead and takes the mouser, cuts himself on the window so he bleeds on it. So now the mouser emits the pheromone also, and he takes off. Alright, so we cut back to the sewers. Casey Jones is telling them a story. And he's talking about a long time ago, men would have to go out in groups and hunt a buffalo. Sometimes this would take 2-3 days of surviving out in the wilderness, not being eaten by monsters. They'd kill the buffalo, they'd bring it home, they'd bow their heads, and they'd say a prayer of thank you to the Almighty. Because no matter how good a hunter you are, no matter how many monsters you can kill, buffalo doesn't show up. Buffalo doesn't show up. So you thank him for the parts you can't control. And while you're at it, you thank him for all your other immediate blessings, your family. And maybe do a thing while he's telling the story. Like you see Splinter and you see the 4 kid turtles like listening to him intently, but then you see like what's going on in their imaginations, where they see themselves out in the wilderness hunting the buffalo as he like describes it. And it's not like a full scene where it's like, and here's the turtles as a pack of hunters. It's just like you see little shots of what's going on in their little mind as they're interpreting the story. Alright, so then they get to the part where he actually starts trying to say show how it's done. Like they all follow suit, but he breaks up at the end and he has to get up and leave. Then Splinter catches up with him. He's outside, like just throwing shit against the wall out in that big sewer tunnel. It's kind of hard to do in his particular situation, is sit down and go, yeah, thanks for you know, my awesome new friends, because, you know, boy, if you hadn't killed my wife and kid, I never would have made them. So he's having a little bit of a meltdown, and Splinter comes out, he calms him down, and then Casey Jones tells him, he's like, look, I need you guys' help doing something. If you want me to help you the way you want me to help you, I need you to help me do something. Now we cut back to Baxter. He's crawling out of the dumpster. He's all beaten up. He's bleeding. And he's got visible ooze all over him. And he stumbles back to the house. Venus wakes up and sees him all fucked up. And then we cut to him finishing a bullshit story. It's like, so there was 3 of them just come out of the dark, beat me up, and threw me in the trash. And, you know, he's telling her this while she's, like, cleaning up his wounds and putting bandages on him. Alright, so now we go back to the sewer where Casey's explaining to Splinter that he needs some stuff in order to help, you know, teach him how to be in the world and be people. So they take the kids on their first ninja mission, which is to sneak into Casey Jones's in-laws' house to get his kids' stuff. So they go by way of sewer into the suburbs, and Casey's in-laws hate him already, so they really hate him now after this. But they've ended up with his wife and kids' personal belongings. So Splinter and Casey hide in a storm drain while the turtles pose them. They take off all the headbands and stuff, and they pose as regular turtles, because they're huge for turtles, but they're like the size of a Galapagos turtle if they're on all fours. Like, you know, those big tortoises. And it's a rich neighborhood. People will just think they're somebody's expensive pets. So they walk on all fours, pose as regular turtles until they get to the yard, and then people pass by and start commenting on them. Oh my god, look at these turtles, they're huge. And they do the thing where they go into the shells, and one of the passers-by is a woman, and she's wearing a skirt, and we've seen them go into the shell plenty of times. Like, that was even a bit in the first one. It was in the trailer even. But what we have never seen the Ninja Turtles do is a thing that actual turtles do, which is that telescoping neck thing. So, well, we watched, like, the people commenting on the turtles, but Michelangelo is, like, right behind and underneath this woman, and he does that thing that turtles do where his head pokes out slowly, and he kind of looks around, and then he looks up, and he looks up her dress, and then his head just keeps going up, and that's where his neck starts, like, telescoping all the way, like, as far as it'll go. And then you cut to the woman's face, and you just hear, like, him snickering, and then she turns around, and his head just, like, immediately flips back in his shell, and he makes that, like, noise that turtles make. So the people leave. They wait it out till they get bored, and then they get into the house. And anytime the turtles in this one are doing anything, it's not like the epic, you know, ninja battles and stuff like that. They're still little kids, so it's like more like a kid's adventure story, like the Three Ninjas, if anybody remembers that flick. So it's something like that. They know karate a little bit, as much as a 10-year-old would know karate, even with training. So they get into the house, but Casey's in-laws have a big-ass Rottweiler, so getting in and getting out is not that easy. So they go in, and they manage to get the kids' stuff. The whole time they've got to fight this Rottweiler, and they just end up destroying the house. It just room by room. They end up in the living room, out trying to get away from the dog. They break everything in every room during the battle with this Rottweiler. Not on purpose, mind you. But yeah, so they get all the boxes that have Arnold written on the side of them, because that's the kid's name, which is actually Casey Jones's name, apparently. It's a piece of comic trivia from the Turtles, is that his name is actually Arnold something or other. Casey's like his nickname. So I'll just name the kid Arnie and leave his name Casey, just for the sake of simplicity. So they get it back to the storm drain and everything. Casey's like, alright, went alright. And then they just kind of look at Splinter and Casey and they go, yeah, in and out. And it just cuts to the inside of the house. The dog is like tied up. And then just a big chunk of sheetrock falls off the wall. That lovely bit of business. We go to our montage. And yeah, I think I'd go for another original song, only this time tonally a little more different. In the first one, it was one of those like 80s martial arts film, Rising to the Top type songs. Paul Herzog, everybody loves a winner. This time I want to go more of the family heartwarming type of song. And again, it's not going to be this song, but one kind of like it. I want it to have the same feel, and it comes from Silent Night, Deadly Night of all fucking places. The song Warm Side of the Door.
Everybody will be there, and they'll be smiling at me, and I won't need no more on the warm side of the door.
Alright, so we see Casey Jones using his kids' school textbooks and shit to teach them how to read and how to do math. The Splinter is like a teacher assistant, but also learning right along with them. And we'll also see Splinter teaching Casey Jones things like how to meditate and stuff like that. You know, all the mystical sides of martial arts that don't really exist. We see him doing all those little exercises to find his inner peace again. And we see what the Rat King's doing, where he does have the rats away from him, but the rats, instead of treating the mouser like a predator, it's got his pheromone coming out of it, so now they just treat it like the alpha rat. They start bringing it food and shit. And then you see him over time throughout the montage has figured out how to actually command the rats using the mouser. And we also see Baxter Stockman, like a scene where Venus is reading her bedtime story. Like, he makes her read the bedtime stories. And you see him kissing her goodnight, and he notices something on his hand. And you see him looking at himself in the mirror, and he's starting to mutate. And throughout the movie, he's slowly Cronenberging his way into being a fly. And then we cut back to see the progress of what's going on with the kids during the learning. And we see Raphael's not a good student. He stinks at math. And we see him crying. Casey Jones and Splinter calming him down because he's so upset that he just doesn't understand long division or why he would need it. And you see the kids doing their ninja training and stuff, of course. Another part of the montage is they come showing up with the old busted payphone, and then Casey Jones helps him jack it into the phone lines, which of course Donatello is there watching with like fascination the entire time. And the final scene of the montage is Casey teaching him how to fish. So you see Leonardo reels in a big fish, and he's like, alright, he's like, that's definitely enough for dinner. So take him home, clean him, get him ready to eat, and then they look over at Mikey and Raph, who are standing there holding two fish like drumsticks, and they're half-eaten. And Mikey's got a look on this terrified look on his face, like, these aren't ready to eat? And Raphael just takes another bite of his and shrugs, like, tastes good to me. And Casey Jones starts laughing. Alright, because the movie could use another decent action scene, we get the Rat King robbing a bread truck. So we get to see him use the mouser in a very lethal fashion. He kills the delivery driver with it. And the whole time he's talking about, like, because he's insane now. He's got mutagen poisoning. So he's not even on the same planet. So he's blathering on while taking the bread about food for his people, which are the rats. He gathers up as much bread as he can carry, stuffs a bunch of it in the duffel bags, and runs back into the sewer. And then the blood-soaked mouser follows him in along with the big trail of rats. And we have a scene of Baxter Stockman running some tests on himself and coming to some really awful conclusions. She doesn't disclose yet, but tell what's going on. Alright, so now we cut back to the kids who are on this kind of Stand By Me-esque adventure, exploring the sewers further than they normally go. And they find a grate that leads up into this old silo in an abandoned factory that's all crumbled and half torn down. And they go in there and they're playing around. Raphael breaks out the ninja stars. Leonardo gets all in his face. Those are Dad's ninja stars. You're not supposed to touch Dad's ninja stars. And he's like, dude, relax. We'll bring him back. So while those two are fighting about that, Mikey and Donnie are wandering around the place. And this is where you have Michelangelo and Donatello start speculating that it's haunted. That's like something little kids would come up with. And of course they encounter the Rat King, who is very pale and ghostly looking and saying cryptic, weird things about entering his kingdom. So they freak out and they're running away. They come running downstairs screaming, the place is haunted, there's a ghost, there's a ghost. There's a big army of attack rats come running down. Of course, Leo and Raph are already on the ground because the argument over the ninja stars has escalated into a fist fight. So they jump up and they start throwing shurikens into rats. Of course, Leonardo keeps running around collecting them because it's the only weapon they have. I was kind of thinking about this just now. Do they have the weapons yet? Because Michelangelo with nunchucks and Donatello with a stick make sense, but being their age and everything, would Splinter be okay with them running around with swords and knives? Then again, it's 1983, so yeah, probably. But we're going to just let Leonardo have Kimbo sticks, because he's still training in swordplay at 10 years old. Raphael will probably have those little tonfa things. Alright, so we get a nice sequence of the little turtles fighting rats, soundtrack it with some Blitzkrieg bop. Then the Rat King shows up with the Mouser. They get a look at the Mouser, they're scared shitless. They start running away. Leonardo panics, throws the shurikens at Rat King. Two of them stick in his shoulder, wound him. They jump back down the grate and run away. And they're also in trouble because they just lost Dad's ninja stars. So Casey enters the den, he's all happy, he's got a TV, his new present for the boys. And he finds the kids are in trouble. They're all sitting on the couch, sulking. Splinter's pulling a story out of them. And then finally, Leonardo's like, Raph took the ninja stars. And he's like, yeah, but Leo lost the ninja stars. So Splinter decides to punish Raphael. It's like, do your 10 flips. And then Casey suggests to Splinter, he's like, no. Punish Leo, too. And Splinter's like, why? He's like, just trust me. Punish him, too, and make him do 20. When Leo asks later why he made him do 20 flips, Casey tells him, because you snitched on your brother. You don't snitch on your brother. Your brothers need to trust you. If you go snitching to Dad, they're not going to trust you. So we cut to Baxter and Venus driving down the interstate, heading to this place upstate. It's an animal preserve where Baxter and another partner have been they have an illegal laboratory under there where they've been doing further experiments with a mutagen. It's where they're keeping all the mutagen. And he brings her in there. And his partner is Jordan Perry from Secret of the Ooze. This time played by Bill Moseley. So he gets Perry in an examination room. And he starts taking his shirt off. And he goes, I figured out how to make the mutagen work on insects. And he opens his shirt. And you see like that he's starting to grow fly hairs and shit. He turns around, he's got the fly wings coming out of his back, and he explains it. It has to bond with mammalian DNA or reptilian DNA, or insect matter won't mutate. And he explains that his mind is starting to slip too, which he already wasn't the greatest guy in the world. He kills a dude right at the beginning of the story, but like that side of him is starting to dominate a little more the more he's mutating into a fly. So then he goes outside, redressed, he sits down and he talks to Venus and he explains to her that this is where she's going to have to stay from now on. And he says, you know, I'm going to die and I want you to stay here with Dr. Perry. He's going to be taking care of you from now on. He's a good friend of mine. And you have this really emotional scene of her crying, and they cry together and they're holding each other, and on his way out he tells Perry, he's like, she's not a lab rat. You understand? You don't do any experiments with her. That's my little girl. Just let her grow up the way she is now. No more tests, no nothing. Perry's like, you got it. So she's not like the others, okay? Don't treat her like you know, treat her special like she is. And then he goes out in the parking lot. He opens the door of his car and then just collapses on the ground and just starts sobbing. And you see the little flashback scenes of him and Venus when she's like smaller and he's wrestling with her and he's like, turtle suplex, and he's like pinning her down and she's giggling, and he's eating breakfast, reading stories, like seeing her in his memories getting progressively, you know, older, and then he's just in the car losing it, just sobbing his brains out. Goes back to his laboratory, opens up a box. He's got 3 other mousers, programs them to track the mother mouser that he gave Rat King, and it's like, now we're going in the sewers, I'm gonna kill that motherfucker. And that's the only thing he wants to do now, kill the Rat King. Before I die, I'm gonna kill that asshole. Alright, so we cut to that set piece from the 1990 movie where Donnie and Mikey are waiting for that pizza at the beginning with the sewer grate and the moonlight. Except it's Splinter and Casey, and Casey's got a 12-pack of beer, and Splinter is gonna take his first drink ever. And you know, starts with, I've never drank beer. He goes to this is kind of disgusting. He's like, no, just keep going, buddy. Just keep drinking. You'll enjoy it. And it teaches him how to like toast with the beer and all that stuff. And so it starts off like celebratory, and then it time lapses. Casey's crying and, you know, talking about like, you know, his wife and kid and all that stuff, and Splinter's listening like a friend. And then there's more cans pile up, and then they're just holding each other and singing. So some song, I don't know which one. And then when the box is empty, it's that moment in Carlito's Way where there's like when they're partying after Carlito gets out of court, and Sean Penn is just kind of wasted and barely awake, and that's Casey, and then Splinter's just hanging on him the way Pacino is on Sean Penn in that scene, and he's like, I don't know what to say to you. Like, just giving him that whole, like, if it wasn't for you, like, you're helping, like, you have no idea what you're doing for me, helping me with raising my boys. And he's like, I never had a best friend. I had a master, I was owned, I was a pet, and then I was a father, but I've never had a best friend. You, Casey, are my best friend. And then maybe he does that weird thing, like, he leans up to, like, kiss him on the head, but he just does that, like, rat version of kissing something, where he just, like, his tongue just flicks out like he's drinking out of one of those, like, water bottles with the ball in it. In case he's like, alright, we gotta go up, we gotta go check on the kids. So go back to the den real quick and see the boys are getting woken up by some kind of noise. Donatello wakes up and he sees Michelangelo, like, standing and staring into the living room, all, like, confused and freaked out. And Donatello wakes up the other turtles, and they walk over there, and then there's the 3 mousers standing in the living room. And they're like, oh God, what do we do? And Leonardo goes, what we've been trained to do. And Leo goes running towards the mouser, does like this awesome slow motion roundhouse kick, slams the mouser right in the side of the head, breaks it loose at the neck, sends it flying into another mouser, lands, and then just starts screaming because he completely jacked his foot up on that thing by kicking it. And then he's hobbling for like the rest of the movie. And it goes into that feel of like an old school 80s horror film, like Critters, Gremlins, that type of feel. Kids start grabbing ninja weapons. This time Raphael grabs the sais instead of the tonfas. Cut back. So they're stumbling back to the den, and then Casey realizes, oh, wait, we're going the wrong way. And Splinter's like, but I want to go that way. I don't know why. So he's starting to pick up Rat King's pheromones. And then Casey Jones is like, hey buddy, you're peeing. And he's like, yes I am. And then I'm going to go over here. And I pee there too. And Casey just goes, alright, well, I'm just going to sit here and wait. Finds him a spot, and he sits down, and he just kind of passes out because he's drunk as fuck. He encounters Rat King. Rat King, of course, is completely insane. Thinks Splinter has come to take his place as the king of the rats. And Splinter's like, the hell are you talking about? So Rat King decides to challenge him to a fight to keep his place in the kingdom. He has a brief little altercation with Splinter. Splinter whoops his ass, knocks him out. To the den, the boys have split up. They're all being hunted by mousers. I have Raphael standing by one of those big, like, circular holes that you have in the video games in the sewers, and I'm pretty sure real sewers don't have, but he's standing next to an open tunnel, and you see the little red dot from the mouser's sensors, like, moving around a little bit in the background. It's got this really nice jump scare, one of these things jumping out of the dark, bites right down on Raphael's midsection, but it can't get through the shell, and the jaws get jammed. Raphael takes the side, jams it straight through the little red sensor on the top of its head. Some sparks shoot out of it, and it just goes limp. He pulls it off, and then throws it down, and does his "God, I love being a turtle" line that appears in at least all the old movies. Like, Mikey said it in the first one, they all said it in the second one, and then Leonardo said it in the third one. So now Raphael's saying it in this one. Raph catches up with Leo and Donnie, who are looking for Mikey. And Raph says he's got one of them, tells them they can't bite through the shells. He says, although it hurts like hell, I wouldn't recommend it. And you see, like, his shell is kind of bleeding, like, in the front. So they find Mikey. He's boxed into some kind of hole or hiding spot, and the mouser is trying to get him. He's all freaked out and scared. So they do this move where Raph and Leo hurl Donnie like a bowling ball in his shell and spin him across the room and knock down the mouser to free Michelangelo from the whatever he's fucking trapped in, and jumps at Donatello. He catches it in the mouth with his metal pole. He flips it over his head, smashes it into the concrete. And then the last one left is the big one, the Mother Mouser, the one that Rat King had. It gets dispatched by that four-way shell slam, which mashes it completely into bits. And then we cut back to Splinter and Rat King, and Rat King is down. Splinter's trying to talk to him the way Splinter would, where he's, I do not wish to hurt you. I only extend my hand in friendship. And plus Splinter's still kind of drunk too, and Splinter's a happy drunk, evidently. And Rat King, of course, is, crazy. Plus, he's been kicked in the head a few times now. So it's like talking to Frankenstein's monster, where he's just like, friend. So we cut over and see Casey Jones is still passed out. The boys come over, wake him up, and, they're like, where's Dad? And then so now we go back to Splinter and Rat King. Splinter's making some headway with this whole notion of friend. I'm a friend. I don't want to hurt you. And when you see a glimmer of happiness for a second in Rat King's eyes that he's going to have a true friend now. And then Baxter Stockman shows up. Baxter Stockman, not the little wimpy fly thing in the lab coat. No, like the monster in Fly 2, if you ever stayed awake long enough for him to actually transform in that movie. Like that. Like, this is a formidable threat. Far more monster than man at this point. And Baxter Stockman gets his revenge.
Kill him.
Casey and the kids outside or underneath the grate, and you hear Rat King screaming. Splinter comes running down the thing. Baxter Stockman starts crawling out of the hole and sees the kids. And his brain now only operates on the two of the most primal instincts in his mind, which is, I hate the Rat King and I love my kid. So when he sees the turtles, he pretty much just sees 4 Venuses. So then his instinct is just he starts going for the kids. They all start hauling ass down the sewer. Casey Jones passes by a loose piece of lead pipe, grabs it, tells Splinter, get the kids out of here, I'm going to slow this thing down. So then we get a Casey Jones versus Baxter Stockman scene. He does not come out on top, but he does slow the creature down for a minute. Splinter drops the kids off back at the den, tells them to, hide, grabs a katana. Baxter makes his way into the little turtle den, and Splinter faces him down. kick-ass fight between Splinter and Baxter Stockman. Splinter kills Baxter. Casey returns to the den just as the fight is over. Everybody reunites and hugs around the... And in horror movie fashion, another jump scare. Baxter wakes up for one last second, gargles unintelligibly the word Venus, and then finally drops dead. We cut to a final scene in the movie. Wrap up, postscript scene. Casey Jones tells Splinter that it's like, I talked to a lawyer. I gotta go up. I gotta deal with this thing. I can't live in the sewer forever. Can't end up like that Rat King guy. So I'm gonna have to go, you know, deal with this thing. Maybe do my time so I can live up top like a citizen again. So Casey Jones gives his, very heartwarming goodbye to Splinter and the boys, and he leaves. And then we go to the last scene of the movie, because I'm not a big fan of the post-credit teaser scene. So let's just go ahead and stick it right at the end. Last scene, a bunch of dudes are breaking into the animal preserve where Venus was dropped off. We see Jordan Perry scrambling, trying to hide the door. Door opens, bunch of foot soldiers. Karai walks out and pulls a sword, puts it up to Perry's neck, and she goes, "Show them to me, now." Perry opens the door. We don't see inside of it. We just see Karai's face. Big smile goes across it. Cut to black with Alice Cooper's Ballad of Dwight Fry chorus kicking up. See my lonely life unfold. It's a good theme song for the Rat King, and that's the movie. So, and Baxter Stockman, kind of, and a little bit of Venus with the, beginning of the song, when's Daddy coming back? So that's it. That is Teenage Mutant Ninja Sensei, my second film in my Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles trilogy, if, of course, you let me make a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles trilogy. This would be the second installment. Not following at all with the 1990 movie is the last reboot. It's a completely different story. It's very low-key. It's a little light on the action. It's more story-heavy than action-heavy, which might be polarizing. I think some people would either love this movie or hate it. One of the two. But it does give us a lot of stuff we haven't seen in any other Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles film, including the Rat King. And I can see why. It was hard coming up with a plot for that guy. Like, his connection to Baxter Stockman was easy, but as far as, like, well, what are they gonna do? That was a little bit tricky, but then it just come down to, alright, Baxter Stockman just wants to kill the Rat King. Rat King's in the sewer, and turtles are between him and the Rat King. And that's kind of lackluster as opposed to what they do with a lot of movies like this these days, where like the whole city has to be in danger. And I think it's more for this story, which is really a story about four fathers. So the idea of Splinter being a father protecting his kids in danger, especially a father still trying to figure out how to be a father, I think that resonates more story-wise. I think that's the thing you're supposed to care about there. Yeah, you got Splinter's a new dad trying to learn to be a father. Then you have his opposite, which is the Rat King, which, unlike Splinter's a rat trying to live as a man and raise 4 children in a sewer. And the Rat King is a man living as a rat with a kingdom of pets in a sewer. And then on the other end, you got Casey Jones as a grieving father who lost his kid. And then you have Baxter Stockman, who is the dying father who left his kid. So people might not like the Casey Jones having a tragic backstory, because yeah, I mean, it is kind of funny, the original notion that he just sat around and watched bad TV. But now that you know the result, hopefully you understand why I had to make the call to do that for this particular story. Another thing that would be new to the series in this story that you hadn't seen would be, well, Baxter Stockman turning into a fly. You have that. You have the Mousers. But we've also never really got to know the little kid turtles. So it's through hanging out with Casey Jones. Like, Casey Jones is a character, at least in this story, but I think even in the old 1990 one too, he embodies a piece of every one of those turtles' personalities. Like, Leonardo gravitates towards his, you know, sort of adultness, the team sports type of thing. Raphael identifies more with the bad aspects of him, which is, you know, his rage, his temper, the heartache of Casey Jones. Mikey gravitates towards his sense of humor. Donatello, of course, gravitates towards all the stuff he can teach him how to do, like, you know, fix stuff, like wiring up that telephone and things like that. So he's what, you know, really influences the personalities of the turtles you met in the last movie. So do all the liking, subscribing, and commenting, and all that stuff. Let me know what you thought of this, the outline of my Turtles film. And if you haven't seen it, if you liked this, check out how to do a proper Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles reboot, which is the first in this little franchise I'm pitching. And till next time, as the rats say,
Eat shit and die, Ricky!
I say,
eat shit and live.
Cowabunga.
All of you, get the fuck out now before I get too mad to turn back. All y'all, now get the fuck out. Come on, you motherfuckers. Get the fuck out. Randy, you tuning son of a bitch. Go fucking practice, Randy. Come on, Morris, you fucking genius. Get the fuck up and get the fuck out of here. God damn it.